I'm Stevie W.
And Callum.
This is the High Ground Podcast, and this is Franchise Wars Part 2, Die Hard, Lethal Weapon, the sequels. So,
Yeah,
the criteria for this is that we're just going Die Hard 2, 3, 4, 5, Lethal Weapon 2, 3, 4. So, we're
yeah.
forgetting that the first one's ever happened. Because check out the previous High Ground Podcast, and we have our opinions there. So, just off the top of your head, just what's your favourite Lethal Weapon or Die Hard sequels?
Um, Probably Lethal Weapon sequels. Actually, I think probably the first Die Hard film was my favorite first one, but I think Lethal Weapon definitely has the stronger sequels, hands down. If I had to choose,
You
for
are
like they're all consistently quite enjoyable, interesting, all good. There's not one where you sort of think, "Oh, that was a bit naff." Whereas you get to Die Hard 4 and you're kind of like, I'm done with this now.
Die Hard 4 was more of I was like gearing up for it, then it happened.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
you want to just say, I mean, I'm the same as you. I'm more Lethal Weapon than Die Hard, but I did a little bit of a head count the other day, and I was asking around non film geeks. I literally asked anybody that I was coming into contact with what sequels they prefer, Lethal Weapon or Die Hard. And by over three quarters, when I say over three quarters, I'm saying literally the majority was Die Hard.
Yeah,
I couldn't believe it. But when I tallied up, I mean, I use IMDb of course as always for all this, but box office wise, even though there's five of them compared to the four Lethal Weapons, Die Hard does win out with receipts because over the five films it took over a billion, 1.439 billion, whereas 953 million. This is all in dollars that Lethal Weapon took in. Now you break it down per average. It uh, Lethal Weapons took in an average of 238 million per movie compared to 287 for the Die Hards, which I thought when we were discussing this that Lethal Weapon would win out hands down. I did. So why do you think that is? That the majority people and the receipts tally up that Die Hard is the more popular than the Lethal Weapon films.
I don't know. I think because a lot of people maybe, I suppose John McClane is like I don't know how to say it, like a more, he's more quotable, I suppose. Like he has more catchphrases and, he like that the same guy gets caught in the same shit twice and yippee and all that sort of stuff. And I don't know, I think it's just sort of because he's by himself, a lot of people sort of jump towards that rather than, a lot of people don't think about buddy cop films when you mention them to them until they've seen them. And I don't know. I honestly don't know. I think that's what I would say. I don't know what if you think anything different.
I think this is. I think Brooklyn Nine Nine. People watch Brooklyn Nine Nine. Lethal Die Hard is always in their head because of the amount of references to it. The Lethal Weapon TV series really didn't do that well. I mean, I have still to watch it
No.
because I'm such a fan of the movies. Then I got thinking back to the time, and you had pretty consistence with the Lethal Weapons. You've got 87, 89, 92, 98. The Die Hards were 88, 90, 95. Then you go to 2000, 2013, 2007, then 2013. Die Hard, well, even if you include the last two, were like big event movies. So because you've had this century, you've had two Die Hards. So that brings it into people's consciousness. And I even remember the when Die Hard with a Vengeance came out. That was an event movie, and
Yeah.
Die Hard with a Vengeance is a superb movie. It is. So I think that Lethal Weapon, even if you look at like the budgets, Lethal Weapon was always a smaller movie. I mean, they're both groundbreaking, as we discussed in the last franchise wars. But I think that in terms of cinematic prowess. You've got Die Hard 2, Die Harder, and Die Hard with a Vengeance are these big juggernaut of action movies, whereas Lethal Weapon are more low key, and they're more got
Yeah, they're
more to the
character sort of studies as well, aren't they?
yeah. Even though
I No, sorry, go ahead.
you can argue that the relationship between Zeus and John McClane is pretty much very much that of Riggs and Murtaugh. So they're stealing
Yeah,
that chemistry.
like they're almost sort of taking what makes Lethal Weapon work. Yeah, I never saw that before actually. That's yeah. I think yeah, like you say, like Lethal Weapon had stopped by 1998, hadn't it? So
Yeah,
I think Die Hard still had it had the chance to do like the extra sequels, and I mean they weren't great or anything like that, but people were still sort of oh it's Die Hard, like yeah I remember that and sort of thing. Whereas Lethal Weapon hasn't had a film since 1990. I mean in a way I kind of do like that because they haven't pushed it too far. Whereas I think Die Hard's gone a bit sort of he's become a superhero rather than a normal cop now.
yeah, I completely agree with you on that. And it's, I mean, even when Die Hard 4.0 came out, it was like it was an event. It's like it's a new Die Hard movie.
Yeah,
It's going to be brilliant because after Die Hard with a Vengeance, and I switched it off the other day when I was watching it. I thought I'd rather watch A Good Day to Die Hard. And you were saying about superheroes, and he does. And that's the thing when I was watching A Good Day to Die Hard, is that he went from being a reluctant hero with a hangover in Die Hard with a Vengeance to Mr. Tough Guy, and that's not the character.
no, I mean like you say about Die Hard with a Vengeance is the best example of how normal he is. I think because how many of us have had to go to work with a hangover
Yeah,
before? And like he's a cop, so it must be even worse.
yeah. I was having a. He was having. He was just nursing a good hangover, watching, smoking cigarettes, and watching Captain Kangaroo. He hasn't been in touch with his wife, who's estranged from, and it's literally all. Which brings me back to another thing that really, whereas the Lethal Weapons keep the family community, keep the family together. By Die Hard 4 and 5, he's divorced and he's estranged from his kids,
Yeah,
and people want to see, and people like the whole family aspect of it. And I think that's the thing that was missing from 4 is that Holly McClane wasn't in danger, and she wasn't even she was referenced but not seen. And I think that's where the later films really mess up on, because
yeah,
ultimately you want to have them back together, and that was the heart of the first 2 Die Hard films. And he even's about to phone her on at the end of the third with a Vengeance,
yeah,
and you keep hoping for reconciliation. And I know this is very another thing I think worked with the 4th and 5th one is, you know, a bold Bruce Willis just looked like Bruce Willis in action mode, whereas they should have just given him a wig or something, so made him look
yeah,
more like John McClane rather than looking like. It just felt like a vehicle for Bruce Willis.
yeah. He was just playing himself, really, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Me and my friend always used to say McClane doesn't look right bold,
No, he doesn't.
and I know like they're supposed to be aging and that, but yeah, it seems like he's almost unrecognizably not that character anymore.
Yeah.
You know, even like Riggs cuts his hair short in Lethal Weapon 4, doesn't he? But you still know it's him, and like Danny Glover just looks the same in all the films, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So
So you find out that he's actually the guy who was it Damon Wayans is older than Danny Glover was, and you think no
yeah,
way, because Danny Glover looks the part for Murtaugh.
he does. Yeah, there is no other Murtaugh.
No, and yeah, I mean I will watch the Lethal Weapon TV series. One thing I did notice because I started watching Die Hard 2, Die Harder, then I ran out of time. There's when they're on the plane and Holly and she chants to that woman who tases her dog.
Yeah.
If you look at the back of the magazine that she's reading, it's got Lethal Weapon 2 on the back.
All right.
So I was
Okay.
like, that's pretty cool.
Like a little sort of.
Yeah.
Is it incidental or do you think it's deliberate?
I think it's deliberate because you think about it, it's Joel Silver's the producer of both.
Yeah. So yeah.
So, which Another thing is, and this is, this is where you got a few things where you got Rennie Harlin, who directed Die Hard 2, went on
Yeah,
to do the Die Hard on a Mountain, which is Cliffhanger,
cliffhanger. Yeah,
and I thought that was just uh, yeah,
it is very Rennie Harlan actually, isn't it? Some of the shots and
yeah,
the scene where all the cops get shot at the escalator.
yeah,
That's that's really Rennie Harlan, like
right.
sort of excess and over the top. It's quite violent, Die Hard 2,
It
actually, isn't
is,
it?
but it's a bloody good film. It is one I am gonna watch again. And I love the first three Die Hard films. I mean, for me, Die Hard 2 was the one that got me into Die Hard.
Yeah,
So I mean, I've been Lethal Weapon fan since I saw. I was more of a fan of two growing up, 2 and 3,
I was.
and I think that's another thing with Lethal Weapon is the Lethal Weapon are message films. They're not check your brain out. There's a message in them. It's number 2, it's apartheid. Number 3, it's gun control. Number 4, it's slave trade. Well, these sort of Die Hards are just straight out action films, and I think that appeals more to the general public.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the first one would be a anti-drug film, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
As well, like, yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, it's sort of Lethal Weapon is more sort of, yeah. Richard Donner is very sort of conscious on issues like that, isn't he? Like the ones that affect society a lot more. Whereas, yeah, you can sort of check your brain out of Die Hard. It's not rocket science plots, is it? It's
no,
just one guy stuck with a load of bad guys. Go do what you do best.
but he's a reluctant hero, and
Yeah,
it was hit me this morning that tonally Die Hard films, they don't change from the first one. They're
no,
always like, they do with the character of John McClane in 4 and 5, but
but
they're
content-wise, they don't.
yeah. And what hit me about Lethal Weapon was, and why to me, the original Lethal Weapon is a different entity to 2, 3, and 4, is that Riggs. I mean, he does have character development. Riggs is a cop on the edge that wants to commit suicide for the majority of the film. By the time you reach Lethal Weapon 2, he's starting to have a family around him.
Yeah,
But he does not have that moment of madness at the end where he finds out that it's the South Africans that have killed his wife and has killed his new love interest. So he goes back out on the edge. But the first Lethal Weapon is a lot harder to watch than 2, 3, and 4, which are more family movies. Which is the
yeah,
only reason why I think that it doesn't do as well as the Die Hards. Is because they are buddy cop comedy action, whereas the Die Hards are action comedy. You get a bigger
yeah.
adrenaline rush from watching a Die Hard movie.
Yeah, I mean, isn't it true that Riggs was meant to die at the end of Lethal Weapon 2?
I'm not sure, but I always thought he was because
Like, because the way they play it, and it looks like they sort of change their mind at the last second, or they're trying to sort of fake you out, like we were saying about the Tony Stark thing. We thought was going to be a Lethal Weapon fake out death, didn't we?
yeah, that's. I mean, you think, as I remember watching Lethal 2, I saw Lethal 2 at the cinema. And I was like, when you get to that bit, you think, like, oh, they can't kill Riggs off, and you do think he's dying. And that's why
Yeah,
your brain is programmed at the end of Infinity War that Tony Stark's going to live. I didn't realise until he got to the funeral in Infinity War, sorry, Endgame, that Tony was dead. It's like, it's a fake out. It's a fake out thing.
yeah,
But I think they want him to die at the end of the fourth one, but you need to have a happy ending with the Lethal Weapon films because it is a family thing. They've just got the kids, grandkids,
yeah.
and
It's nice as well. Like with Lethal Weapon, you grow up with the family, don't you? Not grow up, but sort of, you first meet them in the first one, and then by the second one, you know all the kids' names.
yeah,
By the third one, you know what they're all doing in the background, and then the fourth one, like leaving Leo's part of the family now,
yeah,
isn't he? And I think that's really sort of, I like that. It's that sort of continuity, and also that it's the same director with each film. Dick Donner did all four of them, didn't he? So
yeah.
he sort of keeps that continuity that he kept from the first one, whereas Die Hard it's John McTiernan for the first and third, isn't it?
Yep, John McTiernan, Rennie Harlin,
And then different directors for all the other three, wasn't it?
Len Wiseman, and John Moore.
Yeah. So I mean, there's already, apart from Holly in the first two, there's no real continuity that carries on. Like we said about the kids, you don't see Holly at what's the daughter called again? So
It's John. I should know this. I just watched it yesterday.
That's how memorable it is.
Yeah. Let me Die Hard 4.
What's the name again? That's annoying me.
Let's have a look.
Lucy.
Yeah.
I think, isn't it?
Lucy Gennaro McLean.
Yeah. So the fact that you don't see Lucy again until Die Hard 4 and she's a grown woman, you think, well, what happened there? Like, I don't even remember who this is. Like, at first, you're kind of like, who's this?
Yeah.
You know, whereas, yeah, Lethal Weapon, you sort of, you know who Rianne is and Nick, and, you know, there's even things that happen to them in each film, like, to sort of, it's not just Riggs and Murtaugh getting shot at or kidnapped or whatever, you know, it's, you know, even in the first one, Rianne gets kidnapped, doesn't she?
Yeah.
So, and that's what makes them sort of work together more trustingly. Yeah, and I think like the flow of Lethal Weapon is perfect.
Yeah. One thing that hit me, and I really, this is going against everything I believe in, because I'm a big Lethal Weapon fan. You know, I always, and this is not as negative, and I always look for faults in films, especially if there's something I truly love. I don't want to be seen as look at it through rose-tinted glasses, you know, and that's an easy thing to do if you're passionate about something. But I was thinking Lethal Weapon 4, which I do love. I think Jet Li's a fantastic villain, and Uncle Benny and the Forefathers and everything. I think it's all superb. But when you break it down, it's basically a greatest hits of all the other three Lethal Weapons. Because you got the house exploding, you got Leo and his little monologue. You've got Lorna kicking ass when Jet Li's and you've got the I'm too old for this, we're too old for this. You've got the whole family thing, and then you've got the ending where they all get together. And you've got at one point Murtaugh's smacking out Riggs. So it's literally Lethal Weapon's greatest hits. But having said that, I've always maintained you could literally have a film with all the central characters sitting around a table just chatting, and people would pay money to see it because the characters are there. Whereas, and that's what makes, for me, the Lethal Weapon films is the characters all there. Even if you look at this goes to show you, this is testament to a Lethal Weapon, is that even the psychiatrist, Mary Ellen Trainor, she's back for it, and she's still getting grease from Riggs from it, and the captain.
Yeah, I didn't even think, but yeah, even the police station has sort of recurring people like that, don't they? I mean, I think there's a few of them get killed in Lethal Weapon 2, isn't there? But there's like, it's the antics of what they get up to in the office is like a thing, isn't it, for each film? Oh, well, maybe after the first one because he's just introduced to them. But just the one that always brings to mind for me is the kick in the water butt thing. It gets me every time. I'd love to work with these guys. Like, they look like such a good laugh.
I mean, that's the third one, if I'm right.
Yeah.
The bit where you got the in one ear out the rubber from Lethal Weapon 2, and in 4 you've got the bit where Riggs is trolling Murtaugh with that picture of him in his underwear on the wall. But here's another little interesting thing about Lethal Weapon. If you look in the background, you've got the anti-NRA posters.
Yeah.
And about civilian assault rifles. So, and this is what Richard Donner is fantastic at. Is he puts messages in when you don't realise you're watching a message. The truck Riggs goes under in Lethal Weapon 3 is a PETA, that's people there for treatment of animals, truck with a big banner on the side. and it's literally you can see the stuff. Like I said in the other podcast, though, you got an anti-apartheid sticker on the Murtaugh's fridge. So
Yeah.
there's always a message, whereas there is no message of you're going for a good time for the first three Die Hard movies.
Yeah, I mean, but it's not sort of rushed down your throat and Lethal Weapon like the sticker. Like that's just people have stickers on their fridge, don't they, for
Yeah.
things that they like, or so you don't sort of get the impression that I wouldn't have even known about it if I hadn't read about it. Sort of thing, I just would have thought, it's just a sticker on the fridge. But if you know more about Richard Donner, he's quite into his sort of humanitarian stuff, isn't he, and animal rights and that. But yeah, no, Die Hard doesn't really have any
No,
any political messages, does it?
no, but
But
they
it does
are.
work in a way. I mean, I can't imagine a sort of serious Die Hard film.
No, I think. I mean, I remember when Die Hard with a Vengeance came out, and literally I was on holiday when it came out, so it was like I wanted to be back on. I wanted to be still showing when I get back because I really want to see Die Hard with a Vengeance, and that was an event movie. That was a
Yeah.
major event movie.
I think I can barely just remember the trailers, actually. Was it 95?
95.
Yeah.
And you've got to remember, this is coming off the back of Pulp Fiction as well. You've got Pulp
Yeah.
Fiction's Samuel L. Jackson, Bruce Willis in a Die Hard movie from the director of Die Hard. And it's
Yeah.
like, and it does, the first two sequels, I mean, Die Hard with Die Harder and with a Vengeance, feel like Die Hard movies because they are in the confined space, seeing in New York, not as confined as an airport, but it's still he doesn't want to be doing this. And
No.
it's just pure brilliance. Whereas 4.4 and 5, he is a superhero, and it goes to show you how one-dimensional the character. I mean, I noticed in 5 when I was watching it, it's like A Good Day to Die Hard. When I was watching it yesterday, they do try to put moments in of the dialogue where you think it could have came from the first three Die Hard films, but for the most of it, it is it's just a. I thought color palette with a Good Day to Die Hard and the European feel. I thought they were going for more of a Taken vibe.
Yeah. I think Taken was like the big sort of action revival movie, wasn't it? Of the sort of mid 2000s.
But what I don't
Like,
get.
I didn't we? And I wasn't really feeling it going in. And when we came out, I was like, bloody hell, Liam Neeson's good again.
Yeah, I was literally, as soon as I saw it, I was like, this is Taken's a fantastic film. The sequels, not so much.
No, I think it's.
Although I tell you, there's on the Blu-ray, there's a cut of the film where an alternative ending that's about 45 minutes long, and it's actually fantastic. Right. It's interesting to see how the tone would have changed if they altered the ending. So it's
Yeah.
I can't remember what it is now because it's been years since I watched it. Taken 2 not really a film that's on my radar.
No, another thing from Taken that I'm kind of sad got put into the action genre now is the absolutely disorientingly quick editing that they do now, just to sort of make it look quick, and all it does is just look choppy.
Yeah.
That is one thing. Even though I know you're not keen on it, but John Wick uses full shots of the two people fighting. It doesn't cut very much because it's directed by a stunt guy. So there is at least the cinematography is oriented towards the action and keeping everything in frame. Whereas a lot of action films today, they sort of make me a bit emotional. It's not sick, but you just think, I can't see what's going on.
Have you ever thought that might have something to do with the fact that the audiences can't keep their hands off a film for more than 5 minutes?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, because if you watch how Lethal Weapon and Die Hard is edited, pre Die Hard 4, it's all traditional, long shots and everyone's in frame and slow motion, things like that, traditional action cinematography, which keeps you more riveted, I think.
And they're slower. They're a lot slower. I mean, in terms of cinema, visuals, Die Harder and Die Harder with a Vengeance knock the crap out of the Lethal Weapon sequels. They are very cinematic and they are meant for the cinema. Whereas
Yeah,
the Lethal sequels, I mean, they're great on the big screen. Don't get me wrong, but they're more low key.
yeah.
But
You almost feel like it could be a TV series, don't you?
yeah,
Like sort of when it was made.
yeah, and but I'm glad. I mean, I've seen three of the four Lethal Weapons at the cinema, and I've seen the last three Die Hards. But it doesn't. I mean, the original Lethal Weapon is fantastic seeing it on a big screen. It
Yeah,
is, and I'm so glad I bought a projector to watch classic movies on before lockdown and everything because it's great watching these movies like that.
yeah. I mean, it just feels more authentic, doesn't it? And when you watch films like this that you watched when you were a kid or when you were, at least younger, like growing up, it does make it feel more special, doesn't it?
Yeah.
They were all tailored for the cinema back then,
Oh yeah.
whereas a lot of things now, they're tailored for the small screen, aren't they?
Yeah, which I was thinking about Die Harder in the snow, and I'm going to go a bit off, but I think somewhere down the line that we're going to do a commentary on the thing because that's set in the snow in the dark,
Yeah.
and I think that whole capturing the snow in the cold is one thing. And I think in Die Hard 2, Die Harder, that is brilliant. The airport, you actually feel the cold,
Yeah,
and it is. I mean, it's old school going around airports to get the shots rather than what they do digitally now. And I think that the practical element of Die Hard 2 is superb.
yeah. I mean, the only shot that looks a bit dodgy now is the ejector seat thing, but apart from that, everything's fine. Like it still looks. It's just excess, isn't it? Die Hard 2. That's why I liked it.
Yeah,
It was my favorite for a while actually, and I'm astonished by how many people say they don't like it.
I
I
don't
don't know
get it.
why. Like it's great. Bill Sadler's great in it as well.
Oh, he's brilliant in anything.
I love Bill Sadler.
Yeah. Which reminds me, William Sadler is in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey as Death,
Yeah,
and the Die Hard, sorry, not Die Hard, Lethal Weapon 2's Josh Ackland.
yeah.
He's in Bogus Journey as well.
Oh, was he?
So both two Bill and Ted alumni in Die Hard and Lethal Weapon.
I hate him and Nick Weapon 2. He's such an asshole, isn't
Diplomatic immunity.
he? Adolf. He
Yeah.
calls him that he's got the whole thing. Yeah,
Oh,
no, that's one of my favourite bits as well. When he's just Danny Glover just sort of cricks his neck and says it's just been revoked and
oh,
blows him away. Like I just. I love these sort of traditional cop action movies. They don't make them anymore.
no. I was actually not making things anymore. How could they mess up the formula of Die Hard with 4 and 5?
I don't know. Like you say though, now you said it before. Die Hard 4 feels like a Taken film.
Yeah.
100%. Like, I mean, they even kidnap his daughter at the end, don't they? So, but it's just. Do you know what annoys me about Die Hard 4 as well is I think they've tried to do a Lethal Weapon with that having Justin Long as like a buddy in it. He's just annoying. Like John McClane shouldn't have. Apart from Die Hard 3, Die Hard with a Vengeance, it works there because you've not seen it before. Al is always outside, isn't he, of
Yeah.
the action on the phone, whereas it worked with Samuel L. Jackson because you sort of caught up in the moment, but they just seem to have deliberately thought, I will give him a sidekick, and make him funny, let young kids will like him because he's a computer nerd, and I just went straight off it right away.
Yeah. What about his son in Jay Courtney in
See
5?
the same. I just think he shouldn't have a sidekick because then you are just literally copying. It's just a buddy cop movie, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
not a Die Hard film.
No.
And his son seems, and again, you haven't seen his son since the first film when he was a little kid. So why should you care about him now when you've never seen him before?
Exactly. And one thing that got me, because I was watching the extended cut, And
Oh yeah,
the bit at the end of A Good Day to Die Hard, he just like falls out a window, manages to get up, and manages to do another run to get out again to fall into a
uh,
deliberately there swimming pool. And I'm thinking, my God, he'd be honest, after taking that tumble, if anything that was still working would take him a while to get up, not to be able to run straight away like that.
yeah. And I mean, you've
That
got to remember, even in the films, he's probably supposed to be in his late 40s, 50s, isn't he?
Yeah,
Like even I can't do that.
I mean, maybe it was, you'd have to be really smacked up on something, literally loaded with
Yeah,
adrenaline or something that he shouldn't be taking, to actually be able to still do that. Like you said earlier, he is a superhero.
yeah. That's the only word there is for it. Like he's not. I don't understand. I mean, I understand why maybe they've done it because that like action films are a lot, isn't it? And superhero films are popular as well. But it just seemed, I mean, it was pre Iron Man, so maybe not. Maybe not. All superhero films are the thing. The thing at the moment. It was 2007, wasn't it?
Yeah, but Die Hard with a Vengeance. Sorry, A Good Day to Die Hard was 2013.
Yeah,
So
so that definitely probably was riding off the crest of all that stuff.
yeah, because 2007, you could argue that was just a movie because 2008 was Iron Man. But yeah, Good Day to Die Hard is as I said, they just changed the characters. They did, and it just didn't work.
Yeah, it's not John McClane.
No.
It's just Bruce Willis.
Yeah, and you need the character. You need him to be on his own, one man against the world, and you do need him in a confined space. That's why they call it. That's why they had this little genre of a Die Hard on a boat, Die Hard on a plane, Die Hard on a
Yeah,
and you need it. You need that's the Die Hard formula. Why mess with it? And another thing that got me when I was watching the opening of Die Hard 4 before I switched it off to watch Die Hard 5, well, it says based upon the article A Farewell to Arms by John Carlin. I mean, isn't it Die Hard 5 is the only one that was a deliberately written script or something?
I think so. I think the rest of them are all like not adaptations, but well, the first one is, but they're all sort of ideas from someone else.
Yeah, I mean,
Like Top Gun. Top Gun's based on an article in Time magazine about fighter pilots,
yeah.
and I think that's what gave Tony Scott the idea to do the film. But that's sort of like inspiration to make like the film. Whereas I don't know, like, it's weird, isn't it? Because I don't know if Die Hard with a Vengeance is based on anything.
Die Hard of Vengeance is based on a script called Simon Says.
Oh yeah, so it is. Yeah. Oh yeah, we did say that, didn't we, last week? Actually, yeah. Yeah. So I think 5 is the only one that's not, and ironically, it's the worst.
You think five's the worst?
I think 5's terrible. Yeah, I've seen it once and I've never seen it ever again.
I like five. I like A Good Day to Die Hard because it's a nice bit of nonsense. 4.0, I just thought was well, he takes out a helicopter with a car.
Yeah, that is kind of.
I don't. I
And
think
what annoyed me as well was theatrically they went with like a soft cut, and then on DVD they released the extended unrated cut where the swearing's back in. That's part of who McClane is. Like we
Yeah.
like his sassy one-liners, and to hear what Yippee Ki motherfucker be cut off by a gunshot, like it's just what is going on?
yeah. You need it's Die Hard, but then again you got to appeal to all the quote unquote snowflake.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I think that's where you know. Yeah.
I mean, Lethal Weapon compromises on profanity or anything. That's part of like who Riggs and Murtaugh are, isn't it? That's
Yeah.
how they talk. That's how they act. That's their sort of sense of humour. I mean, I think what pops to mind as well from Lethal Weapon 3 that always has me in stitches is when they get demoted to traffic cops. And they're just sort of bitching to each other that it's the other one's fault, and it's just, it just seems so, like you say, it's what normal people would do, like, in that situation. It's almost sort of Tarantino dialogue, isn't it?
Yeah.
just everyday cops sort of moaning and bitching.
What does that say? The same thing as that, but you know what? I don't give a. What does it
Yeah,
care?
exactly.
What?
It's like those two cops in Halloween 2018, isn't it? They're
Yeah.
talking about this. It's just you like to see normal people talking shit sometimes.
Yeah, because people who are cops are not going to talk about cop work all the time unless they're
No,
obsessed with their job.
just like gangsters wouldn't talk about gangster stuff all the time.
No, they talk about foot massages.
Yeah, I'm the fucking foot master. But what was it? Yeah, funnily enough, you mentioned Pulp Fiction came out the year before Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Yep.
I just thought, is the whole thing about watching Captain Kangaroo a reference to the watch being on the kangaroo? I don't know.
You know the bit uh, when in just as Bruce Willis is just about to get out and basically run over Marcel Wallace.
Yeah.
They play that. There's that song with the lyrics: "Smoking cigarettes and watching Captain Kangaroo."
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
that's where
So
that
it
comes
was a
from.
direct reference.
So that's a little
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Oh, cool. Oh, one thing we haven't touched on yet is who do you think has the better villains in the sequels,
Die
Lethal
Hard.
Weapon or Die Hard?
It's funny. I was going to say that Die Hard, hands down. If we, I mean, even if we're not just saying, even if we just forget Hans Gruber,
Yeah,
because we're not allowed to, because this is the sequels. Uh, I like William Sadler. I think he's brilliant,
yeah,
and Jeremy Irons. Not for all your gold in your Fort Knox.
yeah. I love Simon Gruber. I think he's like
Yeah.
the sort of, I don't know. They're both intellectual, aren't they? But he seems like the sort of the one out of the two that sort of didn't do as well and sort of resents his brother for it. You know, it's that scene at the end where he's saying like your brother was an asshole, and he's like, yeah, I know he was, yeah,
Yeah.
but you still killed him.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, you don't go and see a Lethal Weapon film for the villains. You go and see a Lethal Weapon film just to see Riggs Murtaugh bitching and to see what Leo's
Yeah,
going to be moaning about this time. But Die Hard's at least 2 and 3 it's
yeah,
and of course the first one it's the villains. The villains are
yeah.
good.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with the Lethal Weapon villains. I mean, I like Joss Ackland's good, and he's sort of slimy, and
Yeah.
um, oh, what's the guy's name? Jack Travers. He's in
Uh,
Hot Fuzz, isn't he?
yeah.
Can't remember his name now,
No.
but I like Jack Travers in it, and even Timothy Olyphant in Die Hard 4. He's not too bad, you know. He just I mean, he's just been in The Mandalorian, so
Yeah.
I kind of like him more now. But yeah, no, they're not like bad villains in Lethal Weapon or Lethal Weapon. It's just I think Die Hard just sort of has the edge a little bit.
Yeah. I'm gonna find out who the guy is.
Yeah, I
He's,
can't remember his
he's
name now. I'm
Welsh.
having like actor amnesia at the moment.
Stuart Wilson.
Stuart Wilson, that's it. Yeah,
And I think he's from Guildford. Home of the
I was
Guildford
English, is he?
Flames. Born December 25th, 1946.
He's the Doctor in Hot Fuzz, isn't he?
He is. I brought you into this world. It's only fitting that I take you out.
I think that
Robin
it's
Hatcher.
funny on the audio commentary for that, where they just say like, "We got Jack Travers from Lethal Weapon 3 to play the Doctor." Like, how cool is that?
But you look at the entire cast of Hot Fuzz.
Yeah, they're all like alumni, aren't they, of everything?
I, I love Hot Fuzz, and I'm not. That's going to be an interesting. If we ever do a podcast, that's going to be an interesting one. Because
Yeah, I mean, we'll do the Cornetto trilogy. Oh, it has another link to Lethal Weapon as well, doesn't it?
Cornetto trilogy. I'm trying to think.
Hot Fuzz,
Hot
especially.
Fuzz, Lethal Weapon. They didn't the
Two.
trailer use the same music from Lethal Weapon 2.
Yes, from the trailer. Was it a teaser, I think, or the trailer? When they run away from the mine.
Yeah. Lethal Weapon 2. This time they're back and they're not taking any crap.
Oh, is that what it said?
That's Lethal Weapon 2. And yeah, Lethal Weapon 2 has more has a more subtle set pieces. I mean, we'll do a quickly look at the budgets. Okay, we'll just say the second and third ones. Lethal Weapon 2 it was done on a 28 million budget, whereas Die Hard 2 was 70 million.
Wow.
With a Vengeance was done. Die Hard with a Vengeance was 90 million. Lethal Weapon 3 was 35. The weird thing is, you get cut to 6 years later, and Lethal Weapon 4 was actually 140 million budget, whereas Die Hard 4 was 110 million.
Oh, so we flipped the tables a little bit there.
Yeah. Die Hard 5 was 92 million, and there was no Lethal Weapon 5. But the most successful Die Hard at the box office was Die Hard 4.0, which raked in 388 million. This is all in dollars. Whereas the most successful Lethal Weapon was the third one, which was 321 million. You know, it's all pennies by today's standards.
I mean, yeah, I can't believe how low budget. Well, considerably low budget the Lethal Weapon films were.
But then again, you look at it, there's not really that. It's all practical, and they don't really use many sets.
Yeah.
And things like,
like you say, a lot of the action in some of them is not subtle, but it's Die Hard is big, huge explosion set pieces, intricate sort of sequences. Whereas with Lethal Weapon, it is just simple sort of there's shootouts, there's the odd explosion, isn't there?
Yeah. But things like the exploding the buildings that they blow up in the third one's films buildings that were going to be demolished, so they get a set piece for just setting up the cameras.
Yeah.
I mean,
that was basically a free explosion.
Yeah. And
that's the scene with the cat, isn't it?
Pardon?
Is that the scene with the cat at the beginning?
Almost a catastrophe. But you look at something like, whereas the opening of Lethal Weapon 4, you've got that big explosion set piece and everything.
With the tanker.
Yeah. But if Die Hard 2 Die Harder, you've got a lot of their budget would have been literally going around a different airports just trying to get the snow, whereas today they would do it all digital. Yeah,
because I think all the planes and that were sort of models, weren't they? Anyway, so you wouldn't have to film an actual plane explosion or anything like that,
Well, 70 million in 1990 still.
Still quite a lot, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think even like that even shows which franchise was more popular, doesn't it? The budgets. They had to sort of deliver more with Die Hard to sort of make sure it was better than. I'm not saying it is better, but in their eyes, to keep it more popular than Lethal Weapon.
But the thing with Die Hard 2, and I read this over 20 odd years ago, if not more, that if it hadn't been for Die Hard 2, Die Harder, and Home Alone, that was the last chance for 20th Century Fox, which looked like they were going bankrupt.
Yeah.
It's funny how those two movies not only did immense box office, but saved the studios just so that Disney could acquire it eventually. Yeah,
on Netflix there's a program called The Movies That Made Us.
Yeah.
And there's an episode about Home Alone where they talk about, I didn't realise how much of a troubled production it had originally. It was supposed to be... It was another film production company that was making it originally, because I think John Hughes wrote it, didn't he?
Yeah.
And then Fox obviously took it on and sort of ploughed the right amount of money into it. And it's weird that, a film like Home Alone helped save it as well as Die Hard 2. It's just... I don't know, maybe it's because they're both Christmas films again or something, I don't know.
Not a fan of Home Alone at all, but...
I like Home Alone 1 and 2. I've always liked Macaulay Culkin.
Mm-hmm.
But... Yeah, I don't know, it's worth a watch, though, that programme. If you've not seen it. It's quite good, isn't it?
I've watched the Ghostbusters one.
Yeah, I like the Ghostbusters one, yeah. Even, the Dirty Dancing one was quite interesting. I hate Dirty Dancing, but... The production, I love the history behind productions, even of things I don't like.
I do agree with you there. It's all about educating yourself. I mean, if you watch, one thing I don't get is people who just watch one genre of films and that's it. But that's just
Yeah, it's
my
just
opinion.
so narrow-minded, isn't it? And like even recently, I watched a documentary about RoboCop 3, and it's fascinating. Like I love to see failed productions. And if you've got the Alien box set, the one about Alien 3 is absolutely fascinating compared to the other four.
Yeah. I mean, this is for a debate for another time. You got, just as with you got two cuts of Good Day to Die Hard. You got the two cuts of Alien 3.
Yeah, is the assembly cut.
Yeah,
Yeah, that'd be an interesting one as well, actually, because I don't actually like the assembly cut. You do, don't you?
I do. I watched it for the first time earlier this year because it's one of these ones that I kept putting off to watch with my fiance. But then I got bored
Yeah.
waiting for her. I was like, I'm just gonna sit down and watch it. But it's yeah. But that's definitely. I mean, I think we've said about the John McTiernan who did of course the director of Die Hard. Yeah. What
Yeah.
film? Question for you. What film did he direct? The creator of Lethal Weapon.
What film did he direct?
The director, the creator of Lethal Weapon.
Oh, Predator. I
Yeah.
was thinking, what film does he have Richard Dick Donald as an actor
No.
for a second there? But then I realised what you meant. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's Predator, isn't it?
Yep. I was
Yeah.
actually I was showing my fiance the other day. I said the director of Die Hard, the writer of Lethal Weapon.
And Schoenbach's actually reading a DC comic in that
Yeah.
in Predator. I think it's Sergeant Rock or something like that. But
Ah.
just ironic that he's reading a comic book and then went on to direct a comic book
Yeah.
movie.
Iron Man 3.
Yeah.
You can stick his name on anything and I will watch it because I like
Oh
Shane
yeah, I'll
Black.
give it a chance anytime. I mean, yeah, I didn't like the Predator, but I gave it a chance because I knew who directed it.
I watched The Nice Guys again the other day and I love that film. I forgot how genuinely
Oh,
good it is.
there is no other spiritual successor to Lethal Weapon than that.
Ah, no, that's just it's superb. It's superb.
I wish they would just come out and say it was a prequel,
Yeah.
like with a different set of guys. I just it's they're both so good in it, aren't they?
Oh, they're fantastic. And yeah, I always say it's Lethal Weapon meets The Big Lebowski.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly what it is.
But
Which we haven't touched on the plots. Which plot do you think? Which sort of franchise do you think has the better sequel plots? Do you prefer the sort of like we say the subtler, in depth character ones of Lethal Weapon, or do you like the bombastic, just some bad guys, Die Hard approach?
that's I don't know how to answer this question. Okay,
It depends what mood you're in, doesn't it? Really?
because if I suddenly turn around and say that I prefer, yeah, you're right on that point. It depends on what mood you're in, but it's if you say you like. I like Die Hard 2. I think it's a good film, but I think Die Hard 3. I think it's just the idea of this cop and his reluctant partner, both of them reluctant, going around New York just running through hoops for for what they think is a terrorist, but again it's just a petty thief. But Lethal Weapon, it's like an education. It's like you're learning about why if you it's educating the masses with like about apartheid, about gun control, about the slave trade. It's
Yeah,
putting a message to people that don't really want a message, but making them think when they may not want to think by having it so
yeah.
subtle. So I'd have to, but like you said, it depends on what mood you're in. I think it's a hard one. I think I love Lethal Weapon 2 for the way that because Lethal Weapon 2 is a product of its time. But yeah, but
But also, I think that's a good thing because if you watch Lethal Weapon 2 now and you're younger, or maybe and you might think, well, what's all this apartheid stuff? And you might go and research it and discover a whole new sort of thing that's interesting to you. Like it's just, and then 3 is obviously the gun control thing, which actually doesn't make it date at all.
No.
And I'd imagine there's still slave trading going on as well.
Yeah.
So I think Lethal Weapon is quite sort of current still, isn't it? Die Hard's a sort of snapshot, isn't it? It's like it could take place anytime because there are still thieves around, and it's a bit more sort of bombastic, isn't it? You can switch off a little bit more.
I mean, there's definitely still people blowing up places.
There is definitely
they blow up New York in
places,
'95, and then it happens for real in 2001.
Yeah. Or you'd already had, the FBI bombing by Timothy McVeigh in the 90s, hadn't you? So, yeah, I think that sort of simplistic sort of, villainy is always around, isn't it? But Lethal Weapon, the more complex issues that it deals with. Like you say, it's good because it does have like the issues in the background if you want them. Yeah. Kind of like, almost like a Romero thing, like the issues are there in the background if you want to look at them, but they don't smother the plot. Like there is apartheid in the second one, but that's not what the plot's about. It's just about these assholes that are like trying to rob money, aren't they?
Yeah, they're laundering money.
Yeah,
drugs to money to Cougar. Sorry.
Yeah, if you wanted to take it just on that value, you can. They're just bad guys, but the background stuff is still there.
Yeah, I apologise for the bit of noise just then. Yeah, this is the problem of doing this remotely, is that we do actually. Well, yeah. Yeah. So if you had to, I posed the question of when I was asking people, it's like, which one would you rather watch, Lethal Weapon or Die Hard? But like you're saying, it's like it does depend on what mood you're in.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I had to choose, I would say Lethal Weapon, because I probably watched the Lethal Weapon sequels more than I have watched the Die Hard sequels. I mean, if you top them up over the years, they may be quite similar, but for some reason, Lethal Weapon sequels stick with me more. And I like you say, what mood you're in. Like if you're feeling like a switch your brain off, no-brainer mood, then Die Hard 2 to 3. But if you are in the mood for like some quieter, character-driven stuff as well as the good action, then 100% Lethal Weapon.
I'm the same. I have watched Lethal Weapon more, and I just think they're superb. And I introduced my fiance to Lethal Weapon before Die Hard. The only way I got to watch Die Hard was because of I said, Charlotte, you've got to watch Jake's favourite movie. How can you watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine without watching Jake's favourite movie? And so that way you get all the references. So, but yeah, Lethal Weapons are more accessible for if you've got someone that really isn't that much into your action. But it's the dialogue. Yeah. Sorry, I keep saying it, but it is. It's definitely.
I mean, I know Shane Black didn't. I don't think he wrote them all, did he?
He did the first one and the second one.
Yeah, so I mean, at least, like, I think the writing with the characters does at least seem authentically continuous. Like you would think he had wrote them all, because I think they got some good writers in for 3 and 4 as well. Because I mean, Riggs and Murtaugh seem the same in every film, don't they? Yeah. Like in the best possible, in a complimentary way, Whereas that's what was wrong with Die Hard. Like, this didn't seem like John McClane anymore. It was just like generic action guy inserted here. Whereas before, even though Die Hard is the simpler one, McClane still had a character, didn't he? He still had a code, and he was still a good guy at heart, and he just kept getting in these shit situations.
Yeah. Okay, I've got a little bit of a question for you now. Okay, we're just going to say Die Hard 2 and 3, or Lethal Weapon 2 and 3. Would you change your mind? There's no Die Hard, there's no Lethal 4, there's no Die Hard 4 and 5. If you're just looking at 2 sequels, if they were trilogies.
No, probably not. I think it still stands that I think I've watched Lethal Weapon more. And that may be like a simplistic answer, but I think it is more sort of. Lethal Weapon seems more familiar to me. I don't know why. Whereas Die Hard is. I mean, I still love the Die Hard, but I don't know. It's hard to explain, isn't it? When you put on the spot, you literally can't think why you think something's better than something else without not giving evidence. Yeah, I don't know. I think I would still keep it the same if I was to be pushed.
I do agree with you. I completely agree with you. I think Lethal Weapon's the easier watch for me. I think that
Oh, really?
it's more of a it's more familiar, and Die Hard is this big action, whereas Lethal Weapon is fun. Lethal Weapon is fun, and it's
Yeah.
more enjoyable because it's more. It's not. It's set pieces, but based around like a real good story. Whereas Die Hard is just set piece after set piece,
Yeah.
and the dialogue
Do,
is
do you know,
secondary.
I was thinking about this the other day. One other franchise that sort of molds both of these approaches together is RoboCop, where the first one is really deep and thoughtful, but still has great action sequences. Whereas 2 and 3 in the remake, they sort of went for a fun, less violent. I mean, RoboCop 2 is still quite violent, but by the third one, it's a PG-13, isn't it? And there's no, they were going for this simplistic, let's have loads of action approach. And it's weird how, it didn't work for that because what people wanted really was the deep stuff. Whereas with Lethal Weapon and Die Hard, you can sort of chop and change. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. I do agree with you, but I don't think they know how to market. They didn't know. They had no idea how to market RoboCop.
No, it's easy with Lethal Weapon and that, isn't it? Because it's a cop movie, isn't it? They're both cop movies. At the end of the day, you can, at your very easiest, you can just sort of say these cops are against these bad guys. Have fun.
Yeah. RoboCop. The first one was a film that was meant for adults, but kids loved it.
Yeah, we've talked about this quite a few times, haven't we?
Yeah.
But I still find it fascinating that the whole marketing thing with RoboCop and how they didn't know how to make the sequels, and it kind of does. It happens to Die Hard, doesn't it?
Yeah.
After the fourth one, I don't think they knew what to do. I mean, if that's the case, they left it.
Yeah, but there was too much money in the name.
Yeah.
The name.
Do you think they sort of maybe it's like an Indy 4 situation as well, where they sort of didn't know what to do because it had been so long and so many scripts had been put through, and they just sort of went safe in a way. I mean, I like Indy 4, but you can't ignore the problems.
No, I think that was George Lucas.
Yeah, all right. Okay.
But it's like George Lucas wanted to make this, so they made this, and that was. I think that the studio said, that's it. We need this, this, and this in a Die Hard movie now, so it gets the modern audience. And we don't care. We'll just alienate the other ones because the people that are watching Die Hard probably moved on and got married, got children, got families. Whereas the people the people that are going to be wanting to see a John McClane movie are the older generation, because the newer generation will want to watch something with Keanu Reeves in. I'm sorry, I didn't.
Yeah, I know you've got a thing about it, John Wick, haven't you?
No, it's just that I watched it eventually and I didn't enjoy it, and I could pick so many holes.
Do you think it's because I'd hyped it up too much for you?
No, because there was someone said some stuff and wouldn't let go of it, so I ended up watching it. And there's one thing you take in the Mickey, but then when there's someone that could go on and on and on about how great it is, and then you watch it and you go, well, it's not that good.
Yeah, I can associate it with that. I did that with The Dark Knight, actually, I must admit. I thought everyone just bummed that film so much that it annoyed me. So when I saw it, I was like, well, what's so good about it? And then obviously over the years, I have loved it. It's the same sort of thing, isn't it? Where someone tells you constantly something's good. There is a part of you that thinks, well, I don't want to like it now.
I'd rather go into a film with low expectations and come out thinking this is great, rather than going into a film with high expectations and not liking it. Because
I originally thought that about John Wick, though. I thought, how is a guy's dog getting killed grounds for revenge? And then, like, when I did see it, I thought, wow, like, just even if you just go by the cinematography, I just thought it was great. Like the set pieces on that.
It needed more Dean Winters. It needed more Adrian Palicki. And if he's like a hitman that's that good, how come he kept getting caught so easily? And Ian McShane was good in it, but that was it. But yeah, I just I always I'd rather be wrong than right. It's like going back on the subject, Assassins.
Yeah.
Richard Donner.
God, I haven't seen it for years.
That was 95, I think.
4? Oh, was it 5?
I think it was 95.
The Specialist was 94, wasn't
it? I'll have to find out. But I actually went into Assassins thinking it's a Sylvester Stallone, and it's it's I can't find it, but it's a Sylvester Stallone, Antonio Banderas, directed by Richard Donner. This is going to be one of the greatest films. So I went into to Assassins really like hyped up. This is going to be such a great movie, and it wasn't. So I ended up seeing it twice. Maybe I'm just not in the mood for a thriller. So I went and watched it a second time and I thought, no, I actually didn't like that film. And literally, I think I must have seen it on the Friday. Then I went back on the Tuesday to see it, and that's the sort of film that I don't like. Is one where I build up to be, this is going to be fantastic, and it wasn't. So yeah, that really annoyed me.
Well, that does happen sometimes, doesn't it? I mean, I think, but that's one thing you can say about Lethal Weapon and Die Hard up to the third, is that they're consistently enjoyable, aren't they?
Yeah.
You don't get a point where you're like, no, I'm a bit bored with this one. You know, I mean, the fourth one onwards, I think, definitely, but
yeah.
It's great that Lethal Weapon made 4 films and none of them are boring.
Exactly. I mean, you mentioned Die Hard 4. I went into that one all hyped up because it was going to be Die Hard 4, John McClane's back. How could they go wrong? He's going to be brilliant. The first 3 Die Hards are absolutely fantastic. It was 1995 for Assassins, and it was writers were Lily and Lana Wachowski.
Oh, right, I didn't know that.
Yeah, or as they were Andy and Larry Wachowski at the time. So on paper, Assassins it just didn't work for me. That one didn't, but yeah. I think we're just about wrapped this up.
Yeah, I think we've covered a lot of it, haven't we? What do you think? Would you still say Lethal Weapon's your favourite sequels, or equally, or
Lethal Weapon definitely still my favourites, but I do accept that Die Hard is more popular, and I can understand why Die Hard's more popular.
Yeah.
But I think that's due to being more in the public eye, because it was 2007 and 2013, isn't it? Let's have a look. I just put my notes away for the sequel, so that makes it more relevant to people. But I do think that Lethal Weapon does have the stronger sequels.
Yeah, I totally agree. 100%. Story-wise and like character-wise as well.
So I really do hope you've enjoyed this as much as we've enjoyed doing this.
Interesting actually.
Yeah.
It's a set of films I never sort of. It sounds silly, but I never sort of paired them together as being the opposite of the other. Until now, I just always considered them as like they were 2 of my favourite action franchises.
I always saw them because they were for me after Die Hard and Lethal Weapon, because they were like we said in the other podcast it's like hair metal and grunge. Lethal Weapon and Die Hard came along at the same time, so they've always been the 1-2 punch to that whole thing. And really, if you think about it, they were always the better action movies during that period of the late 80s to mid to late 90s. They were always the ones that are one step ahead of your Slys and your Arnies.
And there was always, I think that they always felt more original You know, everything that sort of came out after either one, you know, it was either a buddy cop movie or it was. I mean, even Arnie was doing it. You know, Red Heat and Last Action Hero,
Yeah.
and like it. They all sort of seem to copy, and the Die Hard with it on a
Yeah.
sort of formula as well. That went way into the 90s, didn't it?
Yeah. And you've of course got Demolition Man. You got the buddies, John
Yeah,
Spartan and Sandra Bullock's character, and Tango and Cash. Literally, and like you said, the Last Action Hero,
yeah,
which was John McTiernan as well.
yeah. Ironically,
Yeah. So they were and are the two groundbreaking franchises that can open on the name of the films alone.
yeah, definitely.
Last words?
Just, I think it's been quite enjoyable doing this. Actually, I mean, it's a lot better not sort of pitting them against each other, you know, in quote marks, like we originally intended with franchise wars. I think it works a lot better, sort of comparing and contrasting critically rather than, oh well, this one's better because of this. You know, you can still do that as long as you're backing it up, but I just think it's a lot better with this format.
Definitely. You said it all perfectly. I'm Stevie W.
And Callum.